for a long time, the feminist movement and the queer movement have had tensions. And this is from a point where trans women were not seen as women, queer women were seen as single women, right? Like, and there were panels organized for single women in feminist conferences because they didn't know what to do with them. As simple as that. They didn't know what to do with people who didn't have vaginas and like penises in very minimalist, very simplistic terms, right? But now, in the past few years, the definition of feminism has also expanded. It's no longer, you're not just talking about women, you're talking about multiple genders. You're recognizing that when you're feminist, you're also recognizing the existence of a gender spectrum and everything beyond the spectrum as well, right? What this means is that there will be tensions because then questions come up that what are you doing here if you're not a woman? But the problem is that the idea of woman is limited, right? And the idea, and when you talk, and I personally see feminism as a movement for equality overall. Please don't ask me why it's not called humanism. We will answer that later. I mean, if you have that question, please ask, but we'll come to that later. But feminism overall is looking at equality between all genders, but I think it's also beyond that. Similar to how I feel about the queer movement, queering is not just being with someone of the same gender or being with someone who is gender fluid or non-binary. It's beyond that, right? And it's important to expand the ideas of this. The thing is that when you're starting to have this conversation, there's always a lot of tension. When I go to a feminist space or a women's rights space, I am constantly misgendered in the sense of that they call me sir or bhaiya, or which is, I don't have an issue with that, but the problem is that what follows that, right? What happens is that after that, if I go to a restroom there, the ladies' loo, I face violence there. That is my issue with it. When you're talking about spaces which speak about equality, it's important to walk the talk. And I often feel like that's where the gap is. And this is not to say that nothing is being done. It's just a slow process, and there's a lot more which has to be done. And the starting of that is to firstly acknowledge trans persons. Yes. And then once you acknowledge this, then it's to move beyond the binary then, right? If you look at gender, if you make everything based on this gender binary, then it will never be an equal world because there will always be people beyond the binary. What about them then?